Hello, class. This is Rhonda again. Hope you guys are doing well. I thought that I would take this week and actually kind of have you guys read this special report that the Ipcc came out with a couple years ago. I'll go through a little bit of basics here, right now, and then I'll have you guys answer a couple questions as well. So, IPCC, I'm not sure exactly how much you guys have been exposed to this. I don't actually do a ton of this in my global climate change class that I've taught in the past. So I thought that this would be kind of a good thing to go through. So the IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I'm going to actually, as part of the homework, I'm going to have you guys kind of go on the website and answer a couple questions regarding who they are, who writes it, how they decide what's going to be in the report. These types of things I think are good for climate students really to understand. So I will have you guys do that. I'm not going to take the time now to do that because I'll have you guys kind of discover that on your own. But basically in 2019, they did issue a special report, and this is on the ocean and the cryosphere and the changing climate. So basically, I don't know, here, I'll make this a little bigger. Put it in this mode. I'll have to take it out in a minute, but this way you guys can hopefully see it. You can see how right here, the fifth assessment report pretty much came out 2013, 2014. The sixth assessment report is, the climate change, the AR6 is basically just is coming out right now. They're just starting to release it. I was going to kind of look at that with you guys, but the figures aren't there. It's still kind of in its editing phase, that kind of idea. So I decided against that and let you guys kind of read that when it comes out on your own. These are definitely some of the special reports that they've come out with. I just pulled this screenshot from their website and I just grabbed this. If you go to IPCC, and I'll give you guys the link, you can just kind of see, hit reports and it drops down this menu for you. So this is the report right here. This is the special report on ocean and cryosphere and a changing climate. Great pictures, by the way, on this website. They did a great job with that. You can see how they've broken it down here. They have a couple of, things. It's not on this page, but in another area you can see for, stakeholders or policy makers, those types of ideas, kind of non-scientists, quick snapshots of what they're projecting and what they've seen and that kind of thing. I'm going to go over what I thought were important points just right now from going over it and looking at the different little key, I forget what it's called here. It's not right here, but some of the key points. I am going to ask you guys though to read a portion of this. I think it's in 5. It's in section 5 here. But the other thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is actually I'm going to assign, since there's 3 coordinating lead authors, there's lots of authors. If you hit the authors page, there's I don't even know, 50 of them or something. But the lead authors, the coordinating ones, there's 3 of them. Notice that none of them are from the United States. Just kind of something I noticed when I looked at it. But what I'm going to do is I'm also going to assign you guys one of these people just to kind of look up who they are, kind of have a better idea as to what their career is like, what they specialize in, where they work, that kind of thing. Okay, so one of the things that I noticed in the report when I was going through it is that they actually use a co-production of new knowledge. So I don't know how much you guys have been exposed to this. I have been through my department in Maryland here, but I'm in a geography department, so they kind of do a little bit more on the human side of geography and not just the scientific side. But this really does have to do with that. The co-production of new knowledge is basically taking knowledge from different areas. And so what they did is they took indigenous knowledges, local knowledges, along with scientific knowledge. That would be what this would signify right here, is kind of like a collection of those 3 areas in order to come up with the knowledge. Typically in the past, people that have written literature and have been published are generally speaking from, Europe, the United States, at least before recent times, they generally were male. They generally were from, dominant races, that kind of idea. So what this does is actually brings in ideas from more than just one source. The people that live there, the local knowledge, and also the indigenous knowledge, that going back, way further than where we have records. They've been passing down stories and ideas through time, and so we can take a collection of those three different sources and come together and have a better idea of the true nature of what's going on. Okay, so just because like this piece of it, I mean, I'm not going to ask you guys to read. I mean, this isn't a whole nother section of the report, so I just want to go over this piece of it as well. They use this language that's kind of specific in this report. If you guys at all are, I don't know, again, what different professors do at SJSU. I haven't really talked to very many of them, I guess, about this piece of it. But there's growing evidence that people, in order to understand their risk and to do their own risk analysis, they need to have a better idea of the confidence that the scientists are having. Because when it doesn't happen, they're like, oh, well, this didn't happen, you said it was going to happen, and then they disregard it. But, if you can say to somebody, well, I'm fairly certain, or I'm somewhat certain, or I'm not really certain, but this is kind of on my radar, it kind of can give them a better idea as to how to assess their own risk. And so this is kind of a thing that at least I'm studying. So they use this language in this report. The first step they do is decide, whether or not, there's agreement amongst the scientists. They look at the evidence in order to evaluate their confidence. So you will see when you read it, there's going to be this language that's very high down to very low confidence in how much they have in whatever numbers that they're reporting or whatever statements they're making. Okay, and then the step 3 is going to say the likelihood. Okay, so this is going to be kind of like, I'm really certain that this is going to happen. Okay, I'm almost 100% versus, I really am, I don't know for sure. We need to study this more. This is maybe a gap in the area or in the research. This can, we might want to look at it from more different angles, that kind of idea. So this together will kind of give you, and you'll see here in a moment, because what I'm going to do, I decided is kind of read to you guys some of the key points that I noticed, and you'll see the language kind of when we go through that. Okay, and then the other thing I really wanted to go over here real fast is the RCPs. Now, the RCPs, I'm like struggling to see this because I'm blind. It starts at 2.6 and going up to 8.5. There's a couple in the middle. Basically, what an RCP is going to be like a scenario. And 2.6 is going to be a scenario where less carbon is going to be emitted between now and whatever year they're looking at. In time, and so we're not emitting very much carbon, so we're not adding to the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, and so anthropogenically, and so therefore the projection's usually a lot better. In this scenario, you can see this is the temperature. The mean temperature in that scenario is that it goes up by 0.9 degree. Remember, this is in Celsius. Okay, and then going up to the 8.5, which is, business as usual. We don't change anything. We just are, emitting carbon into the atmosphere or, anthropogenically releasing carbon. And we're not really, we're not really paying as much attention to it. We're not thinking it needs to, and remember, this is a global thing. So that's where there's like scenarios in the middle because, it depends, right? It depends how China reacts to the situation. It depends on, the United States, depends on even who's in presidency, who we elect in to determine, what type of policies are going to, take place. These types of things are cultures change. India is a growing concern because India is actually considered a developing country and has a very high population. So how do they, develop, and how do they become developed without adding a bunch of additional anthropogenic greenhouse gases into the atmosphere? So all of these are taken into factor when we come up with these RCPs or these scenarios. Okay, so remember, like, I just pretty much remember that 2.6, we're doing good. We really cut a lot of emissions. 8.5, business as usual. You can see from this graph here, and I pulled all of these from this report, that the mean sea surface temperature is projected to go between 0.64 and 0.95. The pH is going to change here. I'm blind. I can't read these numbers right now, which is why I'm not doing it. My computer's a little far away from me, I guess. But I really wanted to bring up that the global fossil CO2 emissions rose more than 2% in 2018 and 1.6% in 2017. And after a temporary slowdown in emissions from 2014 to 2016, the current emissions continue to grow in line with the scenario that's 8.5. Okay, so that's why I pretty much consider this one more business as usual. We don't change anything. So as you're reading through, you'll definitely see them, refer to these, basically the top one, the 2.6 and the 8.5, and they'll kind of compare them to each other and say, what's going on there. All right, so I pulled this, this image from the report. And this image has a lot to it. I do want to point out that, first of all, here's the confidence that I was just talking about. So anything that has 3 dots in it, there's going to be high confidence, and 1 dot's going to be low confidence. We got positive and negatives, and also positive and negatives. And then we also have physical changes where there's an increase or a decrease, or an increase and a decrease. Okay, over here, this is the ocean specifically. Over here, we have the greenhouse gases with the physical changes, so temperature, oxygen, pH, sea level. And then here's the ecosystems. We have the coral, the upper water column, the coastal wetlands, the deep sea. So they kind of separate the ocean into its different components there. And then how fisheries, tourism, these types of things will be impacted by climate change, which is something that's important to communicate with the public and also to policyholders. So remember that this report comes out, and different businesses when they're deciding different ways that they might do things, and also policyholders how they're deciding different legislation and things that they might bring into government. This is what they look at. This is, pretty much the head thing. And I do want to say one thing. This is the intergovernmental, meaning this is not done by the United States. I think you got the idea from the authors here, but this is like a group of scientists from all over the world. And so this is not just our country by any means. This is scientists from everywhere. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of read a couple of these main points that I pulled out. The ones that I saw as being very likely. So the confidence was high and the likeliness maybe was high, that kind of idea. So since 1993, the rate of ocean warming and heat uptake has more than doubled. This is likely and is attributed to anthropogenic forcing, which is very likely. The ocean has taken up between 20 to 30%, very likely, of total anthropogenic CO2 emissions since the 80s, causing further ocean acidification. Rates of poleward shifts and distributions across different marine species since the 1950s, let's see, they give numbers here, are very likely for organisms in the upper 200 meters from the sea surface and seafloor ecosystems, respectively. In recent decades, Arctic net primary production has increased in ice-free waters, which is high confidence. In spring, phytoplankton blooms are occurring earlier in the year in response to sea ice change and nutrient availability, with the spatially variable positive and negative consequences for marine ecosystems. This one, though, is more medium confidence. Let's see, eastern boundary upwelling are amongst the most productive ocean ecosystems. Increasing ocean acidification and oxygen loss are negatively impacting 2 of 4 major upwelling systems, the California Current and the Humboldt Current. These are both high confidence. Ocean acidification and decrease in oxygen level in the California Current upwelling system have altered ecosystem structure with direct negative impacts on biomass production and species composition. This is medium confidence, but I wanted to include that because it's right off the coast there for you guys. In many regions, declines in the abundance of fish and shellfish stocks due to direct and indirect effects of global warming and biochemical changes have already contributed to reduced fishery catches, which is high confidence. Which is interesting, actually, after I read this, because I know I'm in Maryland, and well, specifically crab, and blue crab is on my driver's license. Like, literally, it's everywhere. Blue crabs are everywhere here. I have a shellfish allergy, and I can't eat half the places where I live because of it. But this year, there's a major decline. Like, major. So I think the prices, again, I can't eat it, but I do know the prices have went up like something 60% in my area, because there's that like less of amount of blue crab, and for them to even catch this year, they're just not very big in numbers, or high in numbers. Now, I've read a couple articles that say that they don't know why, and they've ruled out climate change, but I personally am wondering, I need to do a little bit more deeper diving, I guess, is what I'm saying, because I still am curious as to how they determined that, and who made that decision. But in response, okay, so moving on. In response to warming, distribution ranges of seagrass, meadows, and kelp forests are expanding at high latitudes and contracting at low latitudes since the 70s. This is high confidence. Warm water coral reefs and rocky shores dominated by immobile calcifying organisms such as corals, barnacles, and mussels are currently impacted by extreme temperatures and ocean acidification. Again, high confidence. Warming-induced changes in the spatial distribution and abundance of some fish and shellfish stocks have positive and negative impacts on catches, economic benefits, livelihoods, and local culture. High confidence. And there are negative consequences for indigenous peoples and local communities that are dependent on fisheries. Another one, high confidence. Let's see. Continued carbon outtake by the ocean by 2100 is virtually certain to exacerbate ocean acidification. Open ocean surface pH is projected to decrease by around 0.3 pH units by 2081 relative to the 2006 to 2015, under RCP 8.5. So remember, we're going back to that scenario, the one that's business as usual. So if we don't cut our emissions and we pretty much stay business as usual, we're looking at quite a bit of ocean acidification. And this is virtually certain, which is the most certain thing I've actually found. Let's see. And those of us that are interested in severe weather, there's definitely a connection between severe weather and climate and climate change. I wanted to say the extreme El Nino and La Nina events are projected to likely increase in frequency in the 21st century, and likely intensifying existing hazards with drier or wetter responses in several regions across the globe. We here in the Mid-Atlantic in New York, I'm assuming you guys saw that there's, the remnants of, was it Irma? They came through in New York City. It was just, what was it? I think 50 some people died. The videos that came out of the subway was insane. But these, with warming climate, you can hold more moisture, in the air. And so there's more projection. The people are thinking that these high rain events, even, it's kind of out with hurricanes. They're not real sure about hurricanes yet. But the one thing that we're all, thinking for sure is that it's going to be more rain-inducing hurricanes. Like, there's going to be more, water, right? The sea surface temperatures are warmer. There's going to be more water loaded into the system. And so, therefore, these high-rain hurricanes are likely to unfortunately, hit different areas. Okay, so that's what I pretty much wanted to say about that, because I really want you guys to read this for yourself. I know that you're all majors, so I'm not really going to give you anything, I guess, as far as a deliverable on the reading itself, because, I would assume, it's interesting. It actually is, it's kind of cool to see what they did. Keep in mind, though, they're doing, another one will be coming out soon. Okay, so like not a special report, but the actual, the next one. So, what was I going to say? I think that's everything. The homework, like I said, is going to be related to this. I'm going to have you guys kind of look up a little bit regarding who the IPCC is and how they determine things. And I hope you guys are doing well through midterm season and everything else. So I will talk to you guys, I guess, next week.